Okay, I'm going to demonstrate creating the light box out of a 24-inch by 24-inch by 24-inch box. The things you'll need are a 24-inch ruler, a roll of packing tape, a pencil, scissors, a Sharpie, and a utility knife or a mat knife. Okay, the first thing that I recommend, as soon as you get the box, that you kind of fold all of the joints, just to make them a little bit flexible, and just kind of facilitate what you're doing here. So, I'm just going to take each joint and just bend it. Because it's really bulky to work with, because it's so big. It'll just make your life easier. Flip it over. And do the same thing. Go ahead and bring this up onto, and then I'm going to just close it. And I'm going to use my tape to close one side. And this is actually going to be the open side, or the front of the box. I close it because as you're working doing this, it makes it a lot easier to work with. So I'm going to label this front, just so that I remember that it's the front. I'm not going to make any cuts on the front. So you might even want to make a note to yourself, no cuts. And then the other side is going to be the back. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same. Close the box. Again, the main reason that you're doing this is just to keep these sides out of the way so it's not so bulky. Okay. So now I have, and I'm going to go ahead and label this back. So the sides that are open are going to be the back and the front. I'm going to go ahead and write no cuts. Okay, so now I have the front of the box, and I'm facing the front toward you. So obviously, this is the front of the box. This is going to be the top. This is going to be the side. So I'm labeling these mainly to help keep things straight for myself. And side. So top, side, side, front, and back. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to cut out a window for the top. And that window is going to have a 6-inch margin all the way around. So I'm going to mark at 6 inches here. And so I have my ruler at the edge of the board and 6 inches here. And I'm going to go ahead and make a line. And then go around and do the same thing on each side. 6 inches and 6 inches. We're actually going to end up putting a lid on top of this, because you usually won't want light coming from the top, but sometimes you will, and so this gives you the option of letting light in from the top of the box as well. So 6 inches all the way around. and make my last line. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut that window out using my blade. Sharper the blade, the better. And since this is actually a double thickness box, so it makes it a little more sturdy. Because of that, I'm going to, rather than try to cut through the whole thing at once, I'm going to make a couple of passes, and that'll just make it easier. I won't have to push so hard. So I'm going to pass once, not trying to necessarily cut all the way through. And then on my second pass, I won't have to cut through as much. It'll make the cut a little bit easier. Try not to, it's kind of hard. Try not to slip out and cut your hand or cut your throat. And I'm going to do the same thing. So light cut, and I'm staying right on that line. And another light cut. And again, if you try to do this in less than, in more than a single swipe, it'll make it a lot easier. You won't have to try so hard. It will be a little bit safer. And I'm going to cut all the way around. So you can see that rather than trying to cut through the whole thing at once, I'm making a few passes until I've cut all the way through. And then finally the last one. And you'll end up with this piece that comes out. And then again, this is the top. You have a square cut out that has a 6-inch margin all the way around. Okay, now I'm going to do the side. Okay, and this gets a little trickier. Again, here's the front and here's the back. On the side that's parallel with the front and the side that's parallel with the back, I'm going to have a 3-inch margin. So I'm going to measure 3 and mark it, and 3 and mark it, and 3 and mark it, and 3 and mark it. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines there. And my lines there. This is the side, this is the top, this is the bottom. So on these, here on the top, I'm going to want a 2-inch margin and a 2-inch margin. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 2 inches. And the thing is, the reason that I'm doing it this way is I want as much light to get into the side as I can. So this will allow that to happen. So 2 inches and 2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So this is 2 inches. Okay, so I cut all the way through. And here's my 3-inch margin. And again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm cutting, and I'm going to make more than one pass because this is really thick material to cut. So if I do it that way, it's going to make it easier to pass all the way through. Okay. Just following along that line. Again, using a light cut, not putting too much pressure on it, staying along that line. Obviously, if you're short, you probably want to get on the floor and make this cut. I'm just tall enough to do it on the table. I suppose you can get a lower table as well. So now I have the side cut out. So here is the front of my box that I have labeled front. And then the top has this hole. And then one side has this hole. 3-inch margin here, 2-inch margin here. Same thing for this side. So, parallel to the top side, 2 inches, and 2. Don't screw this part up. You want to make sure you get these cuts correct, because I'm calculating it so that I have enough of the material that I'm going to lay down over it. Enough so that there's a 1-inch margin on each side to tape down. If you cut that too thin, then you're not going to be able to close it completely. I think you'll see what I mean. So again, 2 inches and 2 inches. Then parallel with the front and with the back, a 3-inch margin. So as you're doing this in class, obviously I'll be around. So if you have any doubts whatsoever about these cuts or these measurements, grab me and I'll help you out. So now parallel with the back side, again, 3-inch margin and 3-inch margin. And we're going to draw that line. So I can make these cuts. So don't be in a hurry to get this cut all the way through. Really take your time so you end up with some nice clean cuts. Don't throw these away. You're going to use one of them, and I'll show you how you're going to use that. Now here I have the front, here I have the back, then the top, side, 2-inch margin, 3-inch margin, other side, 2-inch margin, 3-inch margin. The next thing you're going to do, everyone will be given a piece of this fabric interfacing. And what this will do, it will filter out the direct light and give you a soft light that shines through onto the object that you're photographing. And just to kind of demonstrate a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and open the front so that you get an idea of what I'm doing. So that will be the front, and this is going to be obviously where you're going to take the image. Your object will be set in here. And then this interfacing fabric, I've made it just long enough so that it will go to the bottom of one box, of one side of the box, and go to the bottom of the other side of the box. So once you have that in place, obviously you want it centered on the sides so that you can tape a little bit up onto that side and tape a little bit up onto that side. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it's even on both sides. In other words, the same space here is the same as the space here. And then I'm going to use small pieces of the packing tape to put it in place. And the reason I'm doing it this way is so that when I tape along the side completely, it's going to make it easier, it's going to hold everything in place. And let it remain centered. The main thing you don't want to do is have the interfacing fabric away from the cut side. You want this square area to be completely covered. It's not that sticky on the fabric. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side. Small pieces of tape. And I have these pre-cut, it just makes it a little bit easier. Small piece of tape there. And get this in place, stretch a little bit. And a small piece of tape there. Once you have that in place, then you can take your packing tape and tape all the way along. So I think I'll do the top first. And I'm going to do that all the way around so that this is completely secure. You might end up, as you tape, needing to adjust a little bit. Maybe you'll need smaller pieces of tape to hold it in place. But when you're done, it's going to be taped completely all the way around. So I think you get the idea. The next step is going to be taking white paper, which I'll give you, and taping it inside.